Hello everyone, am I audible? So today we are going to discuss day 7 and day 8 answers. Hello everyone, am I audible? So if you look at day 7 questions, there are 3 questions that have been asked. One is cultural shock. Okay. And there is another question which is related to anthropological thought, that is cultural materialism. So why is cultural materialism called as vulgar materialism? So these are the questions. Okay, let's wait for 2 minutes. If at all, if other people join, we'll continue. Hi, Nikhil. Just let's wait for 2 minutes. If at all, if anyone is joining, we'll look. Hi, Nikhil. So coming to the questions. First question, cultural shock. So how are you going to approach this question? Because everybody knows what is cultural shock, but when they want to expand on this, they face little difficulty. Okay, so first you just give a basic definition of cultural shock. So what is cultural shock? It is a psychological cultural shock. In the intro, you'll write the definition. So cultural shock is a psychological and emotional response to being in an unfamiliar cultural environment. Feelings leads to feelings of confusion, disorientation, anxiety, frustration. Okay, so this happens in 4 stages. Okay, so different stages or key stages of cultural shock. So if you look at in general, what happens is that we have so many scholars talking about cultural shock, but should we have to remember them? That's the question. Many of the students face this dilemma, like should we remember the scholars for each and everything? From my opinion, I would suggest try to remember only those areas which are very important. Okay, if you go on remembering things, there is hell number of scholars which you come across. You can't remember everything. So one famous person who gave this and who termed this concept is Kalrev Kalervo Ol Kalervo Oberg. I'm sorry, Kalervo Oberg. He has given this, and he has said that there are four key stages. The key stage include, in the first stage is known as honeymoon stage. What happens in the first stage is that, so when you go to any new culture, you'll start feeling in the positive light that okay, the culture is new, and the individuals are excited by the novelty, and whenever you come across a new experience, you feel better. Okay, so suppose you are going to any new culture, what happens? Immediately you see the new culture and you feel excited, you see it positively. So people whenever they go to new culture, whatever is appealing them, they look at it. Okay, so they look at the things whatever is appealing to them. And then comes the frustration stage or crisis stage. At this stage, what happens is that now when you went to new place and you are staying there for a longer period of time, okay, then you'll start noticing that your home culture and the new one are different. And you'll start noticing the difference in language, the difference in food, and other social norms. There it's different. Here the social norms are different. So now at this stage, you start feeling lonely, homesick, and anxious. And this leads to frustration. This is the second stage. And now, definitely that happens. Next stage is adjustment. Now, when you're staying in that place for a long period of time, suppose somebody from South India goes to Delhi for their UPSC education. What happens? There is a sudden change in temperature. All the social norms are different. People eat different food. Okay, so initially they start feeling homesick, lonely, and little anxious. But slowly, after a few days, the individuals will start adapting to that new culture, and they'll understand their norms and behavior, and they try to navigate the environment more effectively. So this is the adjustment stage. And next comes the acceptance stage. So in this stage, what happens is that individual becomes more comfortable and he'll become part of that culture. And then he starts talking the local language, behaving like a local. So these are the key stages. Then if at all, if you want to write further, you can write the symptoms. So the symptoms include the emotional trauma and the physical problems, behavioral problems. So these all things you can notice. And there is one more term called as reverse cultural shock. Now what happens? A person goes from this village A to B. Now here the person gets adapted to village B, and now he's comfortable here. Now what happens? There are a lot of changes from village A to village B. Now when he comes back, these all things appear new. So this is known as reverse cultural shock. So however, what you have to write is that Indian examples. So you have to write examples and studies, like case studies. You take Jarwa tribe in Andaman Islands. What happened when tourists went there and external people went there? Their life has become disoriented because they have started seeing modern clothing, modern technology, and food products. So now they have become confused. Okay, new products, new things, new shelter, that means new clothes. So these all have created confusion and behavioral changes, particularly among the younger generation. So now what happened? Jarwa tribes, they have started deviating from their traditional way of life. So now the cultural impact here is that external materials like processed foods and medicines, unfamiliar social behaviors, these have led to conflicts in their traditional belief system and health practices. This is what you have to write. Okay, so the cultural shock, because modern forces has led to the entry of new people into their area, because of which what happens, it leads to conflict in traditional belief systems and the health practices. Then you have example of TODA, you have bills. So you can write any of the example. In TODA, what happens? Their pastoral lifestyle. So when modern tourism began, the TODA women started wearing traditionally woven hand shawls. Okay, so initially they wore traditionally handmade shawls, but when tourists became, they started becoming commercialized and they have started wearing modern clothing styles. This shift from distinct cultural identity to more modern appearance has caused identity related stress, especially among the older members of this community started feeling identity related stress. So like this, you have some examples. You can mention one or two, whichever you are familiar. Then you can conclude. Okay, you can conclude that the experiences of international students and other volunteers and healthcare workers provide valuable insights. Okay, so when people go and stay in new place, they work there, they stay there. So these studies which are conducted on these people helps us understand the cultural shock better, which is a universal experience. Okay, which is a universal human experience, which offers both challenges, and opportunities for growth. So cultural shock throws challenges at you. At the same time, it will also show some opportunities for growth. So this is how you have to write about the cultural shock. Then coming to the next topic, ethnocentrism and Franz Boas. This is a very familiar question. So how are you going to write? So Franz Boas, if you're writing in the introduction, what you're going to do, you have to write ethnocentrism and Franz Boas are connected through Boas' foundational contributions to anthropology. Particularly, Boas is the critic of ethnocentrism and promotion of cultural relativism. Okay, so this introduction you can give, and then you can write what is ethnocentrism. Okay, you give a brief of ethnocentrism and its features. Now you write Franz Boas and his critique of ethnocentrism. So Franz Boas was a German anthropologist. He's German born, but he's an American anthropologist. Okay, so German born American anthropologist. He challenged the ethnocentric assumptions of his time. His work laid the foundation for modern anthropology focus on cultural relativism, which is in opposite direction to the ethnocentrism. Then you write down the different aspects, how he fought the ethnocentrism. First, through cultural relativist concept. Okay, so he conducted extensive field work with the indigenous groups in North America, particularly the Cockatool. So there, his detailed studies of their language, art, social practices, he demonstrated that their culture was just as complex and worthy of study as any European society. So he showed that any person cannot be judged from others' culture's point of view. You should judge from their own culture's point of view. So first he used cultural relativism to critique. Then he rejected the biological determinism. So the concept of race, which says that the people are pure by blood, by color, by intelligence. Okay, so by using these factors, they showed that a particular race is superior or inferior. But Franz Boas has rejected this biological determinism and fought against the ethnocentrism. So by rejecting, he fought against the ethnocentrism, which has led to the racism. Okay, so this biological determinism has led to racism. So this has been rejected, and now the myth of a race has been busted by the Franz Boas. So this is one more critique of ethnocentrism by Franz Boas. Then by using historical particularism concept, he has shown that there is no unilinear evolution which is ethnocentric in nature. So which says that they are at the highest stage of civilization. Okay, ethnocentric attitude by classical evolutionists made them feel that they are at the highest stage. Okay, savagery, barbarism, and civilization. Right. So this is unilinear development, and historical particularism has been used by Franz Boas to disprove this unilinear evolution. Okay, so he promoted understanding rather than judgment of any cultural differences. So now you understand a particular culture, don't judge it. Then, so in unilineal development, there is ethnocentric attitude that also he fought it. And then he has said that field work and methodology is important. So he promoted ethnographic field work, asking anthropologists to live among the people they studied, learn their language, observe their practices. Through this, what did he understand? Through this aspect of fieldwork and methodology, he encouraged people to go and live among the people they are studying, observe them, understand them. So now this promoted the deeper cultural understanding and discouraged superficial and judgmental views which ethnocentrists such as early classical evolutionists, what people used to do before, sit in the chair, armchair anthropologists, think, make judgments superficially without understanding them culturally. So in order to counter ethnocentrism, his concepts of cultural relativism, rejection of biological determinism, historical particularism, fieldwork, and methodology, these all aspects has been used by Franz Boas to fight the ethnocentric attitude. Okay, these are the things that you have to mention while writing about Boas, Franz Boas, and ethnocentrism. Okay, are you clear how Boas countered unilineal evolution? In historical particularism, he has shown that the similarities between two cultures is not because of their own innovation, but it is because of diffusion, or there are two cases. One is because of diffusion. Other, though in both the cases innovation happened, but it is for different purposes. Suppose in one culture, other culture, both have mask, both have invented the mask. But in one culture, mask is invented for theft purpose. In other culture, mask is invented for protecting from the dust and disease, pathogens. So in both the cases, innovation has happened. Both the cases you might see similarity, but that could be because of their different reasons. So expecting them that it is because people everywhere they are thinking in same way and they're developing in same way is not true. Okay, so he tried to show that different cultures have different ways of innovation. So through this, he wanted to prove that people everywhere think differently and their evolution is because of their own history. Since histories are not same, the unilineal development is not existing. I hope you are clear, Manoj. Right? Moving to the next question. Vulgar materialism. Why cultural materialism is known as vulgar materialism? See, mainly Marxists. So when you're introducing cultural materialism, sometimes labeled as vulgar materialism in a critical sense because of its strong emphasis on material and economic factors as the primary drivers of the culture. So while writing an answer, why cultural materialism called as vulgar materialism? Okay, if you look at intro, I've told you, right? Sometimes it is labeled as vulgar materialism in the critical sense because it is overemphasizing on the material and economical factors as the primary drivers of the culture. So after writing introduction, give an overview of cultural materialism. So just give an overview, don't write much. So what is it Marvin Harris has given in so and so book? Okay. And he talked about three components. There is infrastructure, structure, superstructure. Infrastructure consists of technology, environment, and modes of production. And here you have social organization, kinship, marriage, political systems, political organization. In superstructure, you have religion, art, and other worldviews, symbolic system, magic, etc. So what he says, if any change happens in infrastructure, that will lead to the change in the superstructure. So I'll give you an example, sacred cow example. Why cow is sacred in India? Because it gives milk, it gives food. So milk itself is food. At the same time, it gives fuel, right? Dung. It acts as a draught animal. So because it is serving so many purposes and It is important part of economy. That's why it is considered sacred cow, according to Marvin Harris. And now what happens? These people say that cow is very sacred. You should not kill the cow. This is what they were saying. All right. But if you look at, there was a famine or drought kind of situation. Now, in this famine or drought kind of situation, you have male cows, you have female cows. Now, you have only little food. Now, the people are giving food to female cow only. They are letting the male cow to die. If you carefully observe, people were saying that cow is sacred, you should not kill it. But now, when the situation of economy has changed, what has happened? They have changed their mind. That means their thought process, which is part of superstructure, got changed, and indirectly they're killing the male cow. So this is what Marvin Harris has tried to explain, that cultural adaptations are a result of change in techno-economic factors. Hope you are clear. Now, just you give a brief for your understanding. I have explained this. You need not write in the answer. Now, what you'll write is that why it is called as vulgar materialism. It is called vulgar in the sense that they have reduced everything. Okay, so they have reduced everything to technology and environment. So that means other than material aspect, they did not focus on anything. So they have reduced everything to material and economic factors. Hence, it is considered as vulgar or overly reductionist. Then what is the other reason? That, okay, you are accepting that there is superstructure or there is ideology, but you are not emphasizing this. If you look at Marxist critics, okay, Marxist critics, Eric Wolf and others, what do they say is that if you introduce capitalism or communalism, that will bring equality. Okay, or like if you introduce the idea of communalism or capitalism into the minds of the people, that will bring the change in the economic aspect. So now they are saying that you change the ideology. So if you change the ideology, that will bring the change in the infrastructure, that is economy. So Marxists were not agreeing with Marvin Harris because he is talking only in one way, that any change here will change lead to the change here. But why not the other way? Change in superstructure, why can't it lead to the change in infrastructure? According to them, it will happen. So first, over emphasizing on materialism, material and technological aspects, and becoming too much reductionists, then they are not focusing on the ideology. So they have dismissed ideology, which should not be done. So here Marxists play important role in criticizing. Then another reason why it's called vulgar materialism is that here they fail to address the individual importance. So they are saying that whenever there is a change in economic aspect, that will lead to the change in the superstructure, that is ideological aspect. Now, whenever there is economic aspect, don't you think that human will act, think, and come out with the solution? So individual has got certain importance. He has got his own thinking nature, creativity, because of which he can bring changes. So here, what Marvin Harris has considered is that cultural materialism considers that they are merely passive recipients. So individuals are passive recipients. So that is the reason it is considered as vulgar materialism. So indirectly, it means what are the criticisms of cultural materialism. I hope you are clear. This is with respect to day 7. So you can write conclusion after this. So what you can conclude is that it is referred sometimes as vulgar materialism because of their overemphasis on material and techno-economic factors. But however, cultural materialism has contributed to understanding cultural adaptations by giving a new perspective from materialist aspect. Okay, this you can write. So with right. So then going to day 8. If you have any doubt so far, you can ask. Manoj, any doubts? Nancy, Nikhil. Okay, Manoj. Right. We'll move to the next topic that is asked. Anthropological perspective on changing status and role. How you have to write. Now, first, whenever you come across these kind of questions, so whenever you're coming across these kind of questions, always keep in mind that how the basic anthropological thought that you have read, you can relate here. So you can write Ralph Linton in his study of man has defined status and role. So you write the basic definition of status and role. Then you can write the understanding of anthropological understanding of changing status and role. If you look at structural functionalism, what it will talk about? It will talk about stability of the society. So it means that it is telling within the society or the social system or social structure, you have people, people are arranged continuously, they have relationships between them. And now, so when you take a social structure, you have people, so every person over there plays a particular role by holding a particular position. In order to have the stable society, your role and status has to be stable. So from structural functionalist perspective, status and role is seen as relatively stable. But however, the roles can change due to shift in the larger structure. That means previously gender difference was present, whether one should move out or not. Now, when the World War II happened, and after that, there is a shift in the economy due to industrialization and opening of globalization, the women started participating in the economic aspect. So previously, gender role of women was different, but it has got changed. So there is different understanding of structural functionalism, but however, today it is changing. And globalization has brought so many cultural changes with respect to education, with respect to economy, with respect to political aspect, legal aspect, right? So now this has allowed individuals to move beyond the traditional ascribed statuses and into roles which were once inaccessible. So previously, whatever the status and role that were there, that is not the same because cultural change has happened. So first, you write about structural functionalist view. Second, you write about the cultural change and the role transformation that is happening. So if you look at John Scott, who has studied John Scott in, in a study that is done in 2001, mentions that how the concept of status and role are linked to each other and the social structures. I'm sorry. So he highlights that whenever a social structure, you take this is the social structure, there are people, so they are holding a position and role. Now, once there is a change in the structure, there is structural shift. Okay, so whenever there are structural changes, such as gender roles and economic reforms, these will affect the individual status and role. So according to him, any structural shift happens, so it will affect individual status and role. So in India, we know that there were many structural reforms and that has impacted the position and the, so position means the status and the role. Okay, so these transformations, whatever are happening, they demonstrate that status is not static, but a product of evolving cultural norms. Okay, so this aspect you can write. And then how globalization and modernization has resulted in the change, you can write. So there, if you're writing, you can use the John Scott. John Scott has talked about the structural changes and globalization and other cultural forces. When you're writing how it is leading to changing roles, then you can use H.M. Ali, whose work has been published on this. Okay, then coming to anthropology and modernity. So like if you, there is a scholar known as Joel Kahn, not Khan, Kahn. So he says that anthropologists need to address how modernity influences the change in roles and statuses across different societies. So now, while concluding, you can write about Joel Kahn, who tries to say that anthropologists, what should they do? They should address how the modernity influences the change, how it is influencing, that you have to understand. Okay, especially related to authority, family, gender, leading to both conflict. So whenever these changes happens, it leads to conflict and adaptation also in social roles. So for conclusion, you can use this. Because when you study impact of feminist movement on family, so there you'll be noticing that now gender equality has come, but people are, so now roles have changed because of gender equality, because of the feminist movement. But you also notice increase in number of divorces because it has brought the conflict. So the structural change resulted in the change in status and role, however, also created conflict, sometimes adaptation as well. So how it is happening, how much it is influencing, that anthropologist has to study according to Joel Cohn. Are you clear? Shall we move to the next topic? Any doubt? Nancy, are you clear? If you're asking, if you're having any doubts, you can ask. Okay, fine. Let's move to the next topic. So I'll quickly go through it. So the question is asking social structure. So whenever such kind of question comes, it gives you ample scope to explore your knowledge and at the same time give an impression to the examiner that you are very much knowledgeable, because this is the only area where you can present it, or else it is very difficult when the questions are very specific. Okay, I'm sorry. So if you look at social structure, where all you come across, first the concept of social structure, you come across Radcliffe Brown who gives this, and then Levi Strauss, then you come across Edmund Leach. I would request, if you have not watched the theory lectures, if you're clear with all these things and if you're confident, you need not watch it. But if you think you're not confident about theories, please do watch, and it's available on Thursday. Again, it will disappear. So for your benefit, though I did not promise that I'll be providing this, but in the greater benefit, I'm just giving you that opportunity to utilize. So it's a sincere suggestion, try to finish them. So first you'll write Radcliffe Brown view, then you'll write Levi Strauss view, then you'll write Edmund Leach. After that, you can bring up other scholars, okay, like Pierre Bourdieu. So he always talks about the individual and the power. Okay, so he argues that social structures are constantly being reproduced through the action of individuals. Okay, so the behaviors are shaped by the habits and access to various social, cultural, and economic aspects. So now there is an individual, and to this individual, the access to different types of capital, the social capital, cultural capital, and economic capital. So individual is present, there are different types of capital, and now this individual, along with his habits and his access to these three things, he will take an action, and these actions will influence the social structure according to Pierre Bourdieu. So Radcliffe Brown, we know, I have explained it many times, and Levi-Strauss, social structure is abstract, it is not real, it is present in the minds of the people, and the social structure can be studied through models, and it is always arranged in the terms of a pattern which is related to binary oppositions. So these things you'll write. According to Edmund Leach, he moves a little away from these two, who says that, see, social structure is present, but it is not static as assumed by Radcliffe Brown and Levi-Strauss, and social structure varies from place to place. So this is the understanding of Edmund Leach. Then Pierre Bourdieu talks differently, and you have Sherry Ortner, who says that gender and power always intersect with the social structure. She argues that in many of the societies, there are cultural constructions of gender. So basically, how male has to be present, how female has to be present, that is not mentioned anywhere. But when culture keeps on telling, okay, you should not put lipstick, then only you are male. So females have to put the lipstick, or they have to apply the lipstick. So that means it is being trained or constructed by the culture. So cultural constructions of gender are deeply embedded in the social structures. So always women being relegated to natural aspect. So there is a work of Sherry Ortner, if you are aware, is female to male, is female to male as nature is to culture. So now she's comparing female and male with nature and culture. Female is mostly attributed to natural sphere, and you know that nature is subordinate to culture, and male is attributed to culture, and henceforth female is seen as subordinate to male in terms of traditional social hierarchies. So Arjun Appadurai, in his concept of scapes, okay, so the work Modernity at Large, shows that how social structures are being transformed by rapid movement of people, information, and other cultural practices across the borders. Right? So you can write this different perspectives of scholars in the social structure answer. Don't just write what you learn as 4 or 5 points as a part of society unit. Social structure is a broader thing. Okay, moving to the next question, that neo-evolutionism, how did it address the pitfalls? Okay, the question is, how did it address the pitfalls of unilinear evolution and theoretical innovations? What are the theoretical innovations of neo-evolutionism? So again, this is very simple question, but just try to complicate it by using the language. Okay. So now first what you'll write is you'll mention neo-evolutionism emerged as a significant theory in anthropology to address the limitations and redefine classical evolutionism. So that you can mention, and then you can write the, after giving intro, then you can write the body theoretical innovations theoretical innovations of neo-evolutionism. Okay, so first you have multilinear evolution by Julian Stewart. Previously it was unilinear. So now Julian Stewart, he tries to understand culture in two, core and periphery. Core and periphery. So core consists of all those aspects which interact with the environment. And he says that now culture is having these two aspects, one and two. So now one will interact with the environment. So when these both will interact, they are dialectical in nature. That means first they are in conflict with each other. Suppose you go to new environment, your culture is different, your environment is different. You don't know how to adapt, but slowly you'll adapt. Okay, you'll change your culture and you'll adapt, right? So that means they are dialectical in nature. So culture and environment are dialectical in nature. And now these two will interact and they'll give rise to a particular line of evolution. So if environment is different, there is different kind of evolution. So since there are multiple environments, there is multilinear evolution. So which is a theoretical innovation giving rise to multiple evolutionary trajectories. Then second, energy, technology, and culture. So now the complexity of society is given by this E into T is equal to C. That means if energy consumption is increasing per capita or if the technology is getting better, then the culture will evolve. That means previously there was unilinear evolution and they gave ethnocentric moral judgments. Okay, so who is at the highest stage of evolution or who is at the middle stage or who is at the lowest stage. So they passed on the judgments. But if you look at Leslie White, okay, this has been given by Leslie White. So here he tried to move away from that by giving an objective understanding to the evolution of culture. Then they have rejected the stages. Now here if you look at neo-evolutionists did not use any stages because it is having implicit ethnocentric bias. So they argued that societies has passed through the they argued that societies has passed through the universal stages and instead so society entire everywhere societies pass through the universal stages. And if there is cultural diversity, okay, suppose there is one society, there is other society, all the societies pass through the universal stage. That means they are saying that there is Paleolithic, Neolithic, Mesolithic. So Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic. So like this, there are stages. Every entire world has went through it. And if you see any difference from one culture to other, culture number one to culture number two, if you're seeing these differences, then that is because of local adaptations. So these are the theoretical innovations. And How did they address? So first we have written about the theoretical innovations, and then you write about the addressing of pitfalls of unilinear evolution. Addressing the pitfalls of unilinear evolution. How did they address? First and foremost important thing is that they introduced the flexibility. According to the context, the evolution will change. They introduced multilinear evolution, right? So, which demonstrated that no single developmental trajectory, there is no single developmental trajectory which is universally applicable. So, first, by bringing the flexibility, they have done. Next, they have done the empirical research. They have done the empirical research. So, if you look at the neo-evolutionist, especially Julian Stewart, he has done the field work, he has conducted ethnographic studies, gathered the robust data on how societies adapted to their environments, and thereby making it more scientific. So here unilinear evolution has certain problems. There is rigidity, and at the same time there is no empirical research or scientific approach. So here through empirical research or scientific approach, they try to address the pitfalls. Then here the focus is on the energy and technology. So now when you're measuring, so energy and technology is the focus. It is becoming more objective framework, right? So because you are able to measure things. Okay, so by bringing these aspects, they were able to address the pitfalls. So in the conclusion, what you can write is that, so neo-evolutionism has revitalized the evolutionary anthropology by rejecting the rigid, ethnocentric, and speculative nature of sorry, speculative nature of classical evolutionism. What you'll be writing is that what has neo-evolutionism done? It has revitalized the evolutionary anthropology. It has rejected that rigid ethnocentric attitude and speculative nature that is there. Okay, so this is how you'll be writing the answer to the neo-evolutionism question. You can ask if there is any doubts, or else we'll end the session. Noj, I would suggest refrain from doing any extra activity other than the syllabus that is there. Don't try to get into all those extra things. Just because they have asked some question this year, it doesn't mean that you have to go through all those things. Okay, please refrain. just limit to the syllabus. If there is something important that is happening, automatically I'll try to cover. Okay. I have all the things with me. It's not a problem that to share. I can share it, but at this point of time, it's not required. First, you focus on what's there. That would be sufficient. Don't try to get into extra things. Just because they have asked some questions here, it doesn't mean that you have to go through all those things. Okay, please refrain. Just limit to the syllabus. If there is something important that is happening, automatically I'll try to cover. Okay, I have all the things with me. It's not a problem that to share. I can share it, but at this point of time, it's not required. First, you focus on what's there. That would be. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you, everyone. Good night.